And Mr. Jordan is a probation assistant for the juvenile justice system in Nashville, Tennessee. And Judge Shookoff and Mr. Jordan, let me welcome the two of you to the show this morning.
Well, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
And certainly to talk about what we consider to be a very, very important topic, the justice system and youth violence and many of those things that we hope to cover today. But before we get started, Judge, let us have you and Mr. Jordan give us some information about your background, your education, and perhaps some of the things that were important in your career and eventually leading you to the judge for the juvenile system of Nashville-Davidson County. And of course, Mr. Jordan will give us the same kind of information after you finish.
Well, for me, in between my first and second years as a law student at Vanderbilt Law School, I went into a program that was what was called a Upward Bound program. It was to bring kids who were having trouble in school onto a college campus for a summer and to spend time doing remedial education and also some self-esteem building exercises with them and activities. And out of that summer, just the excitement of both the challenge that some of our youth were facing, but also the opportunity to really make a contribution. It was a combination of the most frustrating and challenging summer, but also the most rewarding summer. So I came back to law school feeling that I really wanted to use my legal work to work with kids and to work on some of the problems that I had seen. And when I graduated from law school, I worked first with Legal Services of Middle Tennessee, and then subsequently came back to the legal clinic at Vanderbilt Law School and represented children and parents and grandparents and foster parents in just about every kind of case involving children, and had that perspective. And then in 1990 decided that I should run for juvenile court judge, because I really felt there were things that I could do as a judge that I saw that needed to be done as a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Mr. Jordan.
Basically, my background starts of graduating from McGavock High School, 1989. Played sports, the whole nine. Basketball was my sport. Now I'm enrolled at Tennessee State University, which you know of. I'm one of Dr. Haney's pupils in his American History 201 class, and I'm very honored to be in his classroom. One of the reasons why I think that I'm at the situation where I'm at now working with juvenile courts, I've been working with kids now going on 9 years, and going through Charles Davis Foundation, who you know who's ex-NBA standout, that came out of J.C. Napier. Then with the YMCA, worked with the outreach program, urban services there, and now with juvenile courts. We have a truancy program in J.C. Napier and Tony Sudicum. We have 2 female co-workers that I work with, three, Vanessa Gaines, Wanda Peoples, and Brenda Carter. I supervise at that site is Susie Beverly. And basically what we do is we do home visits for truancy clients that we have referrals that come through the schools. And we have to make, again, like home visits, where to make sure that these kids who are not going to school, where to make sure that we go by their homes, talk to the parents, and make sure that they go to school. I think it's an excellent program. I'm very delighted to be with the juvenile court organization. So basically, that's my background.
Very good. Judge, let's let's have you to give our audience some information about the juvenile court system as a system itself. Certainly you've talked about being involved, but what about the system itself?
Well, there are basically 4 kinds of cases that the juvenile court handles. One are kids that commit crimes. Those cases at least start in juvenile court. It's called juvenile delinquency. The most serious of those offenders get sent to the adult system, where they're tried and convicted and sentenced just as adults. Those that stay in the system, we have a range of options from probation to incarceration, and we can talk some about those. Then the next set of cases, what's called unruly child cases. These are cases like what Earl's talking about, kids who are truant from school, violating curfew, running away from home. These are not crimes per se. They are offenses that are special for children. They're called status offenses. They're signs of kids getting into trouble, and if we respond quickly, we can nip it in the bud. The next series of cases are called neglect and abuse cases. Those, again, are situations where the parents are being called into court because their children are not getting what they need. It may be everything from drug and alcohol abuse in the home, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or just abandonment, leaving the children with neighbors and then not showing up, or the children wandering the streets unsupervised. So that's a third aspect. And the final area of cases that we have are cases, legitimation, paternity, child support, that come out of children born out of wedlock. And since 4 out of 10 children in our community are born out of wedlock, dealing with child support, visitation, custody, how the child is going to get support, not just financial support, but emotional support from both the mother's family and the father's family, is a lot of what we do. Now, those 4 kinds of cases, in many cases, in a way, are related. That if you are born into a situation where you have a single parent, or where your family's already fractured because mom and dad are not living together, as with many of these cases of children born out of wedlock, you are more at risk. You're more at risk of not getting what you need as you grow up. Dependency neglect is more likely. If you are neglected as a child, you're more likely to start skipping school, getting into that kind of minor mischief, and then you're more likely to end up with a major mischief. That's why what Earl is doing right now is so critical. We have in this community 5-year-olds that are missing 50 days of school, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds that are out of school more days than they're in school. And before, we used to just wait till these kids were 16 and had dropped out of school instead of responding early on. So every morning, Earl and his co-workers are going door to door with the attendance list from the elementary and middle schools they serve, with the idea to find out, what is the problem? Why is this child not going to school? And usually there's problems in the home, and the thing is, let's deal with those problems now. Let's not wait till it gets so serious. Every one of the things that we're concerned about in the teenage years starts in those elementary school problems. So whether it's substance abuse as a teen, or delinquency, violence, teen pregnancy, all of those things are so much more likely if you've started failing in elementary and middle school. And that's why this is such an important program and such an important effort.
Very good. You know, Mr. Jordan, when you talk about students not attending school, and I think the judge has indicated that some of these students are absent as many as 50 or 60 days, what are some of the responses to of the parents when you go by and talk to them? What's the general rule in situations that
basically they're sick, or they missed the bus, which, I don't understand, 50 absentees from school, you missed the bus 50 times. I think that some of these parents that we deal with are they're young age females, and I think, when they get in a situation where they have a child at a young age, 13, 14 years of age, and that this child now is 5 or 6 years of age, they might be the age of 20, 21. They don't really have a control over this child, so my thing is they look at the situation where, I had this child at a young age, and, the cycle continues to grow, as far as this kid not learning how to get up, going to school, disciplinary, so to speak. And those most of the excuses, missing the bus, maybe sick, just like Judge Shookoff said, a couple of them, deal with substance abuse problems. And, we have different organizations that we go in and talk to these parents about where we can maybe get them help for them and their child. So that's the situation.
Very good. Judge, we've got about almost a minute before we enter our first commercial break today, and I don't want to raise a question and have to interrupt you, but when we come back, we want to talk about the structure of the juvenile justice system here in Nashville, and to have you to give us some more information relative to the kind of programs and the kind of things that are happening in the system itself. Certainly we've got another segment coming up after this segment dealing with youth violence and whatnot, and I think that'll give you an opportunity to deal specifically with some of the things that people in the community are really concerned with. But we didn't, as I said, we didn't want to raise that question before. And we'll take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with you immediately following this short commercial break.